Hello once again. Today's video is one that I'm really excited to make because it features a vintage computer that you guys have not seen since 2011. This is my Epson Apex Plus Turbo XT system from 1988. And another reason I'm really excited to make this video today is because this is a computer that actually has quite a bit of sentimental value to me. I've only had it since 2011, but the thing is, it was given to me by my high school math teacher, who I was extremely fond of, still am. He was just an excellent teacher and an excellent person all around. But this was his computer that he personally owned. He bought it new, and it was his own computer, and after he had stopped using it in mainstream use, he had it set up in his classroom for anybody to use. But naturally, at the time I went to high school, from 2008 to 2012, nobody used it. Who wanted to use what was at the time a 20-year-old XT class computer, especially when right beside it there were modern computers for students to use. But when I discovered this thing in his classroom, I nearly had a conniption fit. I was so excited because I hadn't touched an XT class computer since the Tandy 1000EX that my parents had when I was little. So I discovered this thing, and I remember when I found it for the first time, I asked him, I'm like, are we allowed to actually use this? And he said, yeah, go for it. And I turned it on, and it booted up and it worked, and it was just amazing to see and use a computer this old that I hadn't seen since I was practically a toddler. This was when I was 16, 17 years old, so it was just magical to me. Well, come 11th grade, it was discovered that for some reason this computer was not booting anymore. Something went wrong with its hard drive, and you couldn't use it anymore. It stopped booting. So my math teacher actually offered it to me, and I'm like, heck yeah, I'll take it. You know, I figured I could probably get it working. So yeah, my high school math teacher gave this thing to me, and I'm still grateful for it. I think it was an incredible gesture. And as I said, he was somebody who I really loved a lot. I think he still works there. I haven't seen him since I graduated, but I really loved him a lot. So this is one of those computers that I'm just never going to get rid of. It has sentimental value to me. Sadly, when I got this computer, I had the opportunity to get the original Epson Apex color monitor and the original Epson Apex 80 dot matrix printer. However, I could not get either of those. My mother made it very clear to me that I could take the computer and nothing else. She didn't even want me to take the computer. That's just the way Mom is. She's always been that way. It's just because I have too much stuff. But she didn't let me get the monitor and the printer. So I'm like, okay. So I took the computer. Now the problem is, of course, is that the computer had what I always assumed to be a CGA card. It might be a dual mode card. I still have it. It's been in a box since 2011. I haven't looked at it since. It might be a dual mode CGA MDA card, but I don't know. But I have no CGA monitor. All I own are VGA monitors, so I had to do something to be able to use this thing on a normal VGA monitor. So I had, among the horde of other stuff that I had gotten from my high school that they were throwing out or whatever, was a VGA video card, a Trident TVGA 8900CL ISA video card, 16-bit ISA card, but it'll work in an 8-bit slot. So luckily, I had that card, and I was able to use that in this computer. But the card had a couple of problems. First of all, for reasons totally beyond me, 75% of the time, it would start up with black and white video. It wouldn't show any color. Everything would be in black and white, and you'd have to constantly turn the computer off and back on until it randomly decided to show color. So that obviously wasn't very handy. Second problem was that it conflicted with the hard drive controller. The card being as recent as it was a card from like 1993. You couldn't manually set the IRQ or anything, or any of the address locations, and the video BIOS would conflict with the hard drive BIOS. So you turn the computer on and it might boot up, but as soon as you tried to it was specifically writing data. As soon as you tried to write data to the hard drive, you would get a memory parity interrupt error of some sort, and the whole computer would just hang, and you'd have to turn it off and back on. And it would do that every time you wrote to the hard drive, so it was useless. I could only use the thing on floppy disks, which isn't very fun, you know, when you're, you know, spoiled with newer computers that all have hard drives. But then the final problem, the hard drive developed a problem and it stopped booting. Well, it turns out what happened is something's gone wrong with the hard drive. I have done a lot of tests to see if it's mechanical. I don't think it's mechanical. I think it's actually an electronic problem, probably bad capacitors. The hard drive will not start when it is cold, physically cold. It'll spin up really slowly, way slower than it's supposed to, for a few seconds, and then stop, and the light will just blink indefinitely, some sort of error blink. But if you let the computer sit turned on for, you know, 10 or 20 minutes, turn it off and turn it back on, the hard drive will start right up and it'll work perfectly thereafter, because it's, you know, current has, you basically just gotta let current run through the electronics of the hard drive. Even though it's not spinning, it's still drawing power and everything. And then eventually, what I assume are capacitors reform, and when you turn it off and back on, the hard drive's able to start, and it works perfectly, indefinitely, until you turn the computer off and let the hard drive cool down again. So I do think it's bad capacitors, probably capacitors part of the circuitry that provides the servoing of the spindle motor. So yeah, even though I got this computer and was so excited to get this computer, between a hard drive that wouldn't work when it was cold to a video card that started up in black and white mode most of the time and would conflict with the hard drive controller, making the hard drive useless anyway, I don't own a CGA monitor to use with the original CGA video card, I had no way to use this computer practically. The best I could do is just take the hard drive out and use it on floppy disks, and that's just, no, I mean, you can do that, you know, you can do a limited amount of stuff with floppy disks, but it's just, you really need a hard drive if you want to get the most out of a computer like this. So this has been shelved for the past 7 years, but thanks to my boyfriend who sent me another video card for this computer and some other changes that I've done to this computer now works perfectly for the first time since I've owned it, and I'm just so excited about that. I'm really excited to show you guys this computer. I've also done a ton of upgrades to it. You can probably tell there's something new right here. So where do I start with this thing? Well, I did some research, see if I could find advertisements for this computer prior to making this video, and I found one advertisement. And as it turns out, I originally received this computer with some upgrades already in place. Well, the hard drive was already an upgrade. You could actually buy the Apex Plus with a built-in hard drive. It went in the bottom drive slot. It was a 20 meg drive, and it had a different model name. It was called the Apex Plus 20. This one just says Apex Plus, so this would have originally shipped without a hard drive. So the hard drive that I got with this thing, which was on a card, it was a hard card, my high school math teacher would have bought that and put that in sometime later, or possibly bought it with the computer and had it put in by the retailer. Something else I learned is that this computer originally shipped with 512K of RAM. However, my unit has 640K, so that's also an upgrade that my math teacher would have either purchased with the computer or purchased at a later time. And then finally, it turns out the Apex Plus originally comes with two 5¼ inch floppy drives. I got this with a 5¼ inch floppy in the top bay, which now lives in my socket 7 machine over there. And I got it with this 3½ inch 720K drive in the bottom bay. So this 720K drive would have also been an upgrade, either purchased with the computer or at a later date. So my math teacher, the original owner of this computer, did quite a few upgrades to it, either when he bought it or over the lifespan of the computer. He used this thing until 1997, which I think is really cool. You don't see an XT machine get that much use. He really got his money's worth out of this. You know, it's kind of interesting. Somebody spoke to me, I forget if it was on YouTube or on a Facebook group. They were quite surprised that I even owned an XT class computer from 1988. They thought 1988 was extremely late for a new XT class machine to be made. And while it's true that there were 286 and even some 386 machines on the market by 1988, XT class machines were by no means obsolete, and they were very much still being sold. In fact, I did a bit of research to see what was the last record I could find of a retailer selling a new XT class computer, and I found it in, you're not going to believe this, a January 1994 issue of PC Magazine. 1994! It was an advertisement for a retailer selling all sorts of different computers. I'll throw up the picture if I can find it again. But they had 486 systems, 386, 286, and they had a lone XT model still selling. It was their cheapest model, only $450. You know, they had newer, you know, more modern computers for $1,000 or even $1,500, but if you were on a budget, you could get an XT for $450. And that's why XT systems hung on for so long after they technically became obsolete, is because they were still a viable option for the very budget tight buyer. So yeah, this computer was by no means out of place being sold in 1988. The Apex series was Epson's attempt to capture the low-end PC market. Epson already had their Equity series of computers, which were a bit higher end, and they decided to try and capture the low end, the budget end of the market with the Apex series. I believe there were only a few Apex models. I believe the last one was a 286 or something like that. And then Epson just kept going with the Equity series after that. But for example, at the time this computer was made, I believe the latest Equity model was the Equity 2. And basically the difference was the Equity 2 had 640K of RAM, where this only had 512. And the Equity 2 had one or two other things which I don't remember, but one in particular I do remember is, while the Equity 2 has 8 ISA slots, this only has 5 ISA slots, which kind of surprised me when I got this thing, because you know the IBM PC XT has 8 expansion slots, but this only has 5. But to be fair, this thing has a serial port, a parallel port, and a floppy controller, and a real-time clock built onto the motherboard. So you eliminate a lot of need for expansion cards by having all that stuff on the motherboard, so they could actually very perfectly get away with having only 5 expansion slots on the board. It also makes the computer a bit more compact. This is a fairly small and light computer for what it is, far smaller and lighter than, for example, my Socket 7 machine and a couple of my other machines. Now, something kind of funny you'll see if you watch the original video I made of this thing in 2011 is that this thing was white when I got it, and now it is extremely yellow. I didn't realize that until I looked back on that. I looked back on that video in preparation for this video, and I'm like, holy crap, this thing, like, this was perfectly white when I got it, not the least bit yellow. And now it's extremely yellow, which I'm not sure why, because not only have I not exposed this to sunlight in the time that I've owned it, but it was exposed to sunlight in the time that my math teacher had it set up in his classroom. It was very much exposed to sunlight. So I'm not sure why it decided to turn yellow only after I got it. I don't know, maybe, you know, just moving it from its location to take it home with me was some sort of catalyst that just started the reaction that turned the plastic yellow. I don't know, I think it's kind of hilarious. No matter to me. I'm not going to retrobrite it or anything. I absolutely do not mind the yellowing of computers and stuff. Gives it sort of a neat aged look. Likewise, I'm pretty sure this 3.5-inch floppy drive wasn't probably as brown originally as it is now, but who knows. So as for the specs of this thing, well, it's a Turbo XT system, so it's got an 8088 CPU, but it's able to run at 10 megahertz. So you get it boots up in the standard 5 megahertz, but by pressing a key combination on the keyboard, you enable turbo mode, which speeds it up to 10 megahertz. So that's very cool. Actual figures, I think, are 4.77 and 9.54 megahertz, but I just say 5 and 10 just for brevity. And as I said, I originally got this with a 5 1/4 inch floppy drive in the top and a 3 1/2 inch drive in the bottom. Well, because the 5 1/4 inch drive now lives in another computer, I decided to put in the top drive bay the hard drive caddy that my boyfriend sent me that originally lived in the IBM portable PC. I decided that this computer was a better fit for that hard drive caddy, not only because, you know, it's a computer where something like that would just be a better fit overall from a chronologically correct standpoint, but also because you may remember this hard drive caddy didn't actually fit properly in the IBM portable PC. I couldn't screw it in, it was just held in by friction, and you couldn't actually remove the drive because the IBM portable PC has non-standard drive bay faceplate sizes that obscured part of the caddy, so I couldn't actually remove the caddy. So what I've done is, the original 20 megabyte MFM drive that was in this computer, I've actually put that in the IBM portable PC, because what I want to try and do is make the IBM portable PC a more period correct computer, because it's way more valuable than this computer is. So I want to strive to make the IBM portable PC period correct, but I want to make this thing the ultimate XT class computer. So I've put the 20 megabyte MFM drive and the Western Digital MFM controller in the IBM. So the IBM now unfortunately has a gaping hole in it. I've got to find something to fill that in with, and the hard drive's just sitting on the motherboard like the original IDE drive I put in it was. So I got to do something with that sometime. And I've put the XT IDE card and the IDE hard drive and the caddy in this computer, and as you can see, I can now actually pull the hard drive out. That's pretty darn cool. So there's the hard drive, a Seagate ST3144A. It's a 130 megabyte IDE drive from 1993 or so. And that's connected to the XT IDE card. There we go. And I've kept the 720K 3 1/2 inch floppy drive in here. But you may remember my boyfriend also sent me a high-density floppy disk controller. Lets you put a 1.4 megabyte or a 5 1/4 inch 1.2 megabyte floppy drive in an XT class system, whose included floppy disk controllers generally don't support those drives. So I'm going to put that floppy drive controller in this computer eventually, and once I get an adapter to put a 3 1/2 inch floppy drive in this 5 1/4 inch bay, this 720K drive will be coming out, and it'll be replaced with a 1.4 megabyte drive, so I think that'll be pretty cool. And then this 720K drive will eventually go in the IBM portable PC. So yeah, that's what I've done to this thing so far. Also, this thing originally had just a Fujitsu 8088 CPU in it, just a normal 8088 clone. I've replaced it with the NEC V20 CPU that was originally in the IBM portable PC, and I've put the IBM's original Intel 8088 back in it. So now this thing has the V20 and also the 8087 math coprocessor that I put in the IBM is now in this machine as well. So now this machine has all the upgraded CPU fixins, and the IBM is back to the way it originally was, and I think that's a better way for things to be. So yeah, this thing's sort of hot-rodded now. A V20, an 8087, huge IDE hard drive, 720K floppy drive, eventually will become a 1.4 meg. I'm really happy with how this computer has turned out, and it all works just flawlessly. This computer is such a joy to use because it doesn't have any issues anymore. And of course, as I've already mentioned, the original Trident TVGA 8900CL VGA card that I had in this, which did not work correctly at all, I've replaced it with a card that my boyfriend sent me, a Seng ET4000AX ISA VGA card. That card is also from like 1992 or 93. It's a way overpowered card for this computer. It's a 1 megabyte SVGA card, meant for, you know, something that you'd normally use in like a socket 5 or socket 7 system, literally. It's a really overpowered card for this computer, but they specifically meant for it to be XT compatible if somebody wanted to put it in an XT class machine. That's what the AX means, ATXT. So that card is working great in this computer, and it's great to finally have VGA graphics that works correctly and doesn't boot up in black and white or anything like that. It's a really nice video card. ET4000 is a very revered video card. People love to put them in their socket 3 or socket 5 or 7 machines. Very popular, very sought after cards. On the front, we've got an XT keyboard port. I will show you the original keyboard, which I do have for this thing, in a moment. And that's a light that serves as both a power light and it indicates the CPU speed. Orange for 5 megahertz, green for 10 megahertz. Go around the back. Here's a power supply. It's a 100 watt power supply. You get a 25-pin serial port, which I've put my serial port 9-pin adapter on there so I can hook a mouse to this thing. Parallel port. There's the ET4000 VGA card, which is apparently okay, so that's good. There's the info plate there. And the part numbers, the actual date codes on the ICs inside this computer do specify a manufacture date of 1988. And this black slot blank right here is actually the hard card that the hard drive used to be on. There's nothing on the card anymore, it's just a blank metal plate, but I've put it in here just to fill the slot gap. And that's your lot. No sound card, no modem, no network card. Just the bare fixins. That's all you need on a computer like this. I would like to, I'd love to put a sound card in this, but I don't have one, unfortunately. I'd love to someday be able to get like a Sound Blaster or a Sound Blaster Pro, but unfortunately those things are just way too valuable now. I'm never going to get one unless I actually just run across one, like in a junk pile or something. So, that's the outside tour of this thing. Let me show you inside. There's 2 screws on this side, 2 on the opposite side, and the cover pops off. So with the lid popped off and the front panel comes off with it, this is what you get inside. Here's your power switch, and your drive bays, keyboard port, speed LED, dual color. And here's the inside. You can't see a whole lot of the motherboard, but it's just a standard small XT motherboard. Baby XT? Baby AT? Whatever you'd call it. It's smaller than the normal XT motherboard. Only 5 slots. But as I said, you get a lot of stuff on the motherboard, so that's all you need. Here's what used to be the hard card that was originally in this computer. You had a Western Digital WD1004A-WX1 MFM controller over here, and then a Kyocera KC20B right here, and those things are now in the IBM portable PC. Here's your speaker down there. You get a full range speaker, one of those cheapo ones with the plastic diaphragm. Over here, ooh, look at this. You get an NEC V20 and an Intel 8087 math coprocessor, and both parts are rated for 10 megahertz. And there's that pretty blue XT IDE card with the IDE cable going to the hard drive caddy. And actually, I'll take the caddy out here, give you a better look Give you a better look at that. And then there's the 720K floppy drive, which is actually an Epson branded drive, which is interesting. And everything plugs in with Molex connectors and floppy cable. Floppy drive connects right here on the motherboard, right next to the power connectors. It's a 34-pin connector on the motherboard, but the drive itself uses a card edge connector, so I have a feeling that's going to be the hardest part to find for when I replace this floppy drive with a 1.4 megabyte drive. Is that expansion card, that floppy controller, has a card edge connector on it, but a 1.4 meg floppy drive is obviously going to have a 34-pin connector on it. So I'm gonna have to find a floppy cable that's card edge on the motherboard end, but then 34-pin on the drive end, and I'm not sure if I have one of those, and I'm not sure how easy it's going to be to find one. There's the Seng ET4000AX SVGA video card. It's got 1 mega video RAM. It's got more video RAM than the entire computer has system RAM, which I think's hilarious. Actually, this is a good time to bring up something. When I was setting up this computer, put in software on it and everything, one of the programs that I tested on, I've never used before, but I tested just to see how it would work, was CRAM, QRAM, from Quarterdeck Office Systems. It was a memory management program for 8086 and 8286 class computers. I tried it out just to see, see if it could do anything with regards to the managing the 640K of RAM on this thing, but also because, according to what I read, CRAM can actually make use of extra video memory on VGA cards and turn that into system RAM. At least that's how I understood it. But when I installed CRAM, CRAM literally said, this was the actual words it used, that there was nothing for it to do. It said CRAM has nothing to do, because apparently CRAM actually needs an XMS board. It needs what CRAM looks for is an expansion card that gives you extra memory, like another few hundred kilobytes of memory or whatever, which you could get for XT class systems to boost the amount of memory up to like a megabyte or whatever. That's what CRAM looks for, but I obviously don't have that, so CRAM's like, I'm useless, there's nothing I can do for you. So, but I'm also kind of dumbfounded because, according to what I read online, CRAM can find VGA video memory and sort of use that as system RAM. But I don't know, maybe I was misunderstanding it. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, or maybe knows some other software program that might be able to do that, let me know. I think that'd be quite cool to do if I could use the plethora of extra video memory on this card that's never going to be used and turn it into system memory. I think that would be quite cool. Get, a megabyte of RAM or whatever on this computer. Your system memory is down there, and it is indeed, well, most of it is on the board, but then some of it is socketed, and it's now obvious to me, this thing was obviously upgraded from 512 to 640 in its lifetime. See, for the longest time, I always thought these just came with 640K. It wasn't until I found that one advertisement where I learned that these originally shipped with 512, and 640 was an upgrade that you had to do. But yeah, you can see there's the 512, not socketed, and then there's these sockets here where the extra 128 would go, and they're obviously different brand chips, Samsung chips on the motherboard, and Oki Data chips in the sockets, so it's quite obvious that this was upgraded. I never noticed that before. Oh, something else that I just remembered. Like I say, it's been so long that I'm sort of relearning this stuff. This thing has a real-time clock on the motherboard. It was backed up with a NiCad battery that was leaking. It was in the process of leaking at the time I got this computer, so I removed it. And I've never put anything there since then. what I tried in recent times since getting this computer running again, I have an AST-IO Mini. It was a multifunction expansion card that gives you a serial port, a parallel port, and a real-time battery-backed clock. It uses a standard CR2032 battery. It came in the IBM Portable PC. I don't need it in that because I have the AST 6-Pack Plus, which does the same thing and more. So I tried to put the AST-IO Mini on this computer, but I could not for the life of me get the AST clock software to see the real-time clock. Or it claimed to see the real-time clock, but it just output gibberish. And when I used the software to try to set the real-time clock, it just would not set. It would say it's set, but when I rebooted the computer, MS-DOS would ask me for the time and date again. So I'm not sure what's going on there. My guess is that because this thing already has a real-time clock on the motherboard, the real-time clock on the AST-IO Mini is conflicting with that, and it's just screwing the software up, and the software doesn't know what it's looking at. So if anybody can help me with that, that would be nice too. I would like to get a real-time clock going in this thing. If in the end I can't, I know I have options for actually putting a battery back on the motherboard. My boyfriend does a trick that involves using a lithium-ion battery, one of those CR123 batteries, pairing one of those with a diode, and maybe a couple other things, making a couple other changes to basically retrofit a lithium-ion battery into a motherboard that uses those old NiCad batteries. So I may do that in the end if I have to. Well, there's the power supply. PS901. It's funny how these things never have a brand name on them. They only have a model. Kind of cool about this power supply, it's actually got little pots that you can reach down with a screwdriver to adjust the 5 volt and 12 volt rails. I think that's kind of cool. Yeah, I think that's all there is for the physical tour of this thing. So now, let me set it up. Oh, I gotta show you the keyboard. Yeah, I'll show you the keyboard. Here's the keyboard. It's a Epson Apex branded keyboard, XT keyboard. Very nice though, it's got the AT layout. Something you may not know is that, you know, we usually associate XT keyboards with having, you know, the F keys on the left and, you know, this sort of layout, and then AT keyboards having the modern keyboard layout with the F keys on the top or whatever. But there's actually two different layouts with the F keys on the left. There's the original XT layout, which was 83 keys, and then there was the original AT layout, which debuted on the IBM PC AT, that has 84 keys, and this is the original AT layout. And the difference is, it's got the full-size shift key, which is definitely a godsend. And I think the enter key is a bit different. It's got a full-size shift key on the right, and it's got a couple other differences that I just don't remember, because the 83 and 84 key layouts are quite similar. But the biggest change, as far as I'm concerned, is the full-size shift key. I am forever missing the shift key on the IBM Portable PC, because that has the original XT keyboard layout. But yeah, this is the AT keyboard layout, and then the modern keyboard layout that we normally associate with AT keyboards, that's called the enhanced keyboard layout, or the 101 key layout. Now, sort of interesting, this keyboard, not made by Epson, it was actually made by a company called Seijin Electronica. I don't remember their name, but I remember Seijin, S-E-J-I-N. It doesn't say it here, but when I looked up M-8700 keyboard, I came up with Seijin. And sort of interesting, if you look right here, this is actually a dual mode AT-XT keyboard. It would normally have a switch here, you know, the OEM Seijin version of this keyboard would have a switch there to switch between XT or AT modes. But if you look down there, you can see that the XT contacts are soldered together while the AT contacts are left open. So this keyboard's been permanently set in AT mode, or in XT mode. But if I were to take my soldering iron and open that big blob up and install a switch there, I could turn this thing into an XT-AT switchable keyboard. And that is really cool. I've only realized this recently. I'm not sure how I never saw it before. Maybe I just didn't know what I was looking at. But yeah, it's got the feet there to prop it up. And the keyboard has kind of interesting switches. They're kind of spongy on the way down, but then you get a tactile click on the way back up. It's not the greatest feeling keyboard. It's okay. It's not as good as like a Dell Quiet Key, but it's interesting, an interesting feel nonetheless. But yeah, it's a fine keyboard. And then if you look right here, it says regular speed, orange, referring to the LED on the case. Hold Control Alt and press /. Fast speed, green, Control Alt /. That's how you change speeds. And Epson bundled with, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to show you the floppies. I have the original Epson MS-DOS and GW Basic floppies that came with this computer. I also have the books that came with this computer, but those are at Mom's house, so I can't show you. Darn. But I'll show you the floppies, the 5 1/4 inch floppies that shipped with this computer. Anyway, what made me think of those is, on those floppies, on the GW Basic floppy, is a program that switches the speed for you. You just run the program and the speed changes. This was in case you had a GW Basic program, like a game or something that ran too fast at 10 megahertz. You just run the program and it would bump it down to 5 megahertz. So I recently dug out the floppy so I could get that program. What I'm going to do is put it on the hard drive and I'm going to stick it in the autoexec.bat so that this thing automatically switches to 10 megahertz when it starts up and I won't have to press the keyboard combination every time I turn the computer on. Okay, so anyway, let me put the computer back together and I'll get it set up. I will grab the 5 1/4 inch floppies and show those to you. I won't be able to show you what's on them because this thing doesn't have a 5 1/4 inch floppy drive, but it's just regular old MS-DOS 3.2 with like one Epson specific text file and then that speed program, and the other disk is the regular old MS-DOS GW Basic. That disk has the speed program on it. So let me get this set up, grab the floppies, and we'll come back. Alright, we're all set up here. We've got a Microsoft serial mouse plugged into the serial port. We got my Sony Trinitron monitor hooked up. But before we turn on, these are the original MS-DOS and GW Basic floppy disks that shipped with this thing. Very nice teal colored sleeves. They're very pretty. I like them a lot. And there you can see MS-DOS 3.2, GW Basic with Xtree and supplementary MS-DOS utilities for the Epson Apex Plus and Apex Plus 20. And yes, I have imaged them just recently. I stuck them in the Socket 7 machine and imaged them, so I now have images of these disks in case they ever go bad or whatever. But I think these same discs might already be online on WinWorld. Somebody imaged a copy of Epson MS-DOS 3.2 and GW Basic discs and put them on WinWorld, so they might be the exact same discs. Now granted, the disc images on WinWorld say only for the Apex. They don't say the Apex Plus, so they might be different from mine, but I don't know. But yeah, there you go, and as far as I know, both of these discs are still perfect. So that's very cool that I got those. And of course, this computer I also got with a ton of other 5 1/4 inch floppy disks, like, 25 or 30 of them. So it's nice to have because I never had 5 1/4 inch discs before then. But luckily, once I get the 1.4 megabyte drive in this computer and this 720K drive in the IBM Portable PC, I won't have any computers dependent on 5 1/4 inch floppy disks anymore, which is going to be great because here's the thing, I do not like 5 1/4 inch floppy disks. I have had endless bad luck with 5 1/4 inch discs and drives, and maybe it's just truly bad luck. Maybe it's because all the discs I have are, I think, generic brand discs. They're not like from a major manufacturer. Maybe they're just crappy discs, but I've just had such poor luck with 5¼ inch discs. I always have discs going bad. I've had to constantly clean drive heads, and I've had two 5¼ inch drives go completely bad, just totally stop working. One was the B drive in the IBM Portable PC, and the other is the B drive in the Sharp PC 7000, the computer Neil gave me, which is sitting up in my closet. I haven't touched it since I got it. Not only because, you know, it's going to be emotionally hard to, you know, use that computer now, but also because the B drive just totally stopped working. It only sees one side of a disk, and so I've only got one functioning drive, which isn't very useful. But yeah, I just haven't had good luck with 5¼ inch drives. So once I get this drive in the IBM and a 1.4 megabyte drive in this, I won't have any computers that need 5¼ inch discs anymore, and that's going to be great. I can't wait. Because I have great luck with 3.5 inch discs. I've never had a problem with those. But anyway, those are the discs, and I also have the original MS-DOS and GW Basic manuals, two separate books. They're like 300 pages each, spiral-bound books, and they're very nice. I would assume that they're standard Microsoft books that Epson has just slapped their name on, but they're excellent books. I've actually learned a bit about GW Basic from the GW Basic book that came with this computer, so that's great. Anyway, light off. Let's turn this on. Hard drive starts up. It's quite quiet. There's the boot ROM for the video card, and it's counting up the RAM. There's the XTIDE BIOS initializing, detecting the drive, and we are booting. We're booting into MS-DOS 5. There's the mouse driver. There's Norton Utilities 6, which I have installed, making an image of the drive. And now it's asking me for the time and date. And because the real-time clock in this thing doesn't seem to handle Y2K dates well, I've been putting 1988 instead of 2018. So today's June, I think it's the 17th, 88. And the current time, I don't even know, what time is it? It is 4:02 p.m. 4:02 p. And there we are. Oops. MS-DOS 5, and I've got quite a bit of software on this computer, including Windows. I put Windows 3.0 on this thing, and let me tell you, this computer, really nice for Windows 3.0, I've got to say. You may remember, I think I mentioned in the video of the IBM Portable PC, I tried Windows 3.0 on that and it was just unusably slow. This computer runs a lot better. You know, with that V20 and being 10 megahertz and having more RAM and a VGA card, Windows 3.0 just looks like crap on CGA. Yeah, this computer is okay for Windows 3.0. While I wouldn't recommend running Windows 3.0 on a normal 5 megahertz machine, I think it's okay for 10 megahertz. Speaking of which, I'm going to switch the speed, but what I want to test is to see, I've got a 720K floppy disk here, so I'm just going to see that speed program works. There's the floppy drive, and is it there? Yes, it is, speed.com. So if I type speed.com, why can't I type today? Why does it say the current CPU speed is 477? I thought it changed the speed. Speed help. Oh! Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's very nice. So if I go speed 2, yeah, now it's green. And it says 9.54 megahertz. Oh, that's great. Alright, I'm gonna, first of all, copy that to the hard drive. I'll go into edit here. There you go. And I will go put its sticker right there. Actually, I should put it at the beginning so then everything will load faster. That would make sense. I'll stick it right before the mouse driver. Speed /2. Now let me hit a Control-Alt-Delete here and see that everything works. Alright. They put in a garbage date. 7/17/88. 4. This truly doesn't matter, putting in the right time and date. But yeah, it automatically switched to 10 megahertz. That is excellent. So now I don't have to worry about that anymore every time I start this thing up. We'll do a directory here. Okay, we'll do a wide directory here. There it counted up the free space on the hard drive a bit faster. Well, exactly twice as fast theoretically than the IBM would, so it can handle this big hard drive a bit more gracefully. But yeah, I've got the Microsoft Mouse software installed, Windows 3.0. Oh, I've got Quarterdeck Manifest installed. Part of the reason I tried to install Cram is so I could get Manifest. Manifest's a nice program. But I found a standalone copy of Manifest that came with a copy of QEMM. So, oh, I've got Microsoft Word for Windows on here. Microsoft Word for Windows 1.1. Which was like the first version to work on Windows 3.0 and like the last version to run on a XT class system. I've also got Microsoft Word for DOS, version 6.0 I believe, the last version. Norton Utilities 6.01. I've got Checkit installed. That GLX Play, that's Galaxy Player, which is a mod file player, because I was talking earlier about sound cards, right? Well, while I don't have a sound card for this thing, I do have something that provides some limited sound functionality. It's the homemade Kovac speech thing clone that my boyfriend built for me. So I'm going to be showing that in a separate video, because I think that's kind of cool. Oh, I've got Desk View installed. That's a software suite also from Quarterdeck that basically lets you run multiple DOS programs in sort of a pseudo multitasking fashion. You can open, you know, multiple command line windows and stuff like that. What else? So, oh, I've got After Dark for Windows installed. I've got that installed, so I got screensavers here. The folder modem, that's Bananacom, which I'm going to be using. Why I'm making the video of this computer today is because my next video is going to be demonstrating the homemade Wi-Fi modem adapter thing that my boyfriend also built for me that lets you connect to a BBS over Wi-Fi on any vintage computer. That's going to be pretty cool. And yeah, there's the speed program. So yeah, right off the bat, let's just open Windows. Show you how it runs. I like Windows 3.0. I think it's aesthetically, you know, a little bit nicer than Windows 3.1 even. I like the startup screen. I like the way the icons look. It's a bit more regal than Windows 3.1. You probably can't even hear the hard drive. It's pretty quiet. It ain't the fastest thing in the world, but there you go, and we do have a mouse, as you can see. And of course we are running in real mode. And actually, kind of a neat thing, something I learned only recently about the NEC V20 CPU is the NEC V20 is actually an 8188 compatible CPU, and its counterpart, the V30, which is a replacement for the 8086, is actually 8186 compatible. But the V20, it's an 8188 compatible CPU, which the 8186 and the 8188 were never really used on personal computers, but they are a little bit significant when you can get them in the form of the NEC V20 or V30, because the 8186 and 8188, they're actually fully 8286 compatible, except they don't have the protected memory mode that the 8286 has. But they otherwise have the complete 8286 instruction set. So what that means is when you have an NEC V20 or V30 processor in one of these XT computers, you can actually run some software that requires a 286. As long as it doesn't need the protected mode, it'll run just fine. So you actually gain a bit of 286 software compatibility on a computer that would otherwise never have that capability, so that's kind of cool. But of course it doesn't have the protected mode, which Windows 3.0 needs for its standard mode, so it's just running in real mode here. And you can open up the After Dark controller. And I like this one, stained glass. I think it's kind of pretty, so we'll demo that. Make use of the VGA graphics. And it just slowly draws these almost fractal-like patterns. They're very pretty. They go multiple colors. I don't know if you can see that. There, you can see the detail a bit better now. But yeah, I think it's quite pretty. So we'll stop that. And of course, I do believe we have the very obvious flying toasters right here. Kind of sluggish flying toasters, but they're there nonetheless. Very cool. I'll put that away. We'll open Microsoft Word for Windows. Not the most pleasant thing to use on this computer. Word for DOS is much better. Word for Windows, you really need a 286. XT system's just too slow. Word for Windows is extremely sluggish on a computer like this. 1990. Kind of interesting. I could never get this program to work correctly on the IBM portable PC. It wouldn't give you any font options, but it works fine on this computer, which is kind of odd, but whatever. And I think this program's actually math coprocessor aware. I think this is the program that I have that's coprocessor aware. So that certainly helps a little bit. There you go, and I can type. Actually, it's still loading stuff. There it is, type. Testing. I can highlight a word. Yeah, it's just really sluggish. I want to change the size. Oh yeah, this doesn't work still. It doesn't show a list of sizes. You have to just type it in. 36. And just thinking about it, it does a ton of reading and writing to the hard drive. It's really not. It doesn't run well on a computer like this. If we go to the About screen, Yeah, I wouldn't recommend this. Put it on a 286 or better if you want it. Yeah, this is math coprocessor aware, and it says we have one, so that's good. I didn't buy a dud. We have 100K of memory free. Alright, let me get out of this before it crashes. That's happened before. I've had Microsoft Word for Windows just crash the entire machine because it totally runs out of memory when I open one of the example documents. Alright. I think... Oh, I have Excel installed! Excel for well, just Excel. There was no Excel for DOS. Excel was only on Windows. I forgot I had Excel installed. I think this runs like crap too. It's been a few weeks since I powered on this computer, so I don't remember everything, but I believe Excel runs like garbage on this. Version 2.1D from also 1990. Also, for some reason, this version of Excel should have charting capabilities, but I don't get it. I have no options for making a chart. Maybe it's because this is an XT class machine. Maybe it only works when you're on a 286 or better. I don't know. I guess it doesn't run too bad. It's not as bad as Word for Windows. I can open one of the example documents here. Now remember, we're running at 10 megahertz. Imagine if I had just running at the normal 5 megahertz. We'll open this one. And it'll open it as a new sheet, I believe. Keep the other one open. So you can have multiple sheets open at once, which is kind of impressive, especially on a computer of this grade. Yeah, there you go. Excel doesn't run too terribly bad. I don't know why I don't have charting capabilities. Maybe it's because this computer's too old. It just didn't give me any options for that. But yeah, you can see it's got some formulas there, so it did all those calculations already. So that's very cool. We'll get out of Excel and then we'll get out of Windows and I'll show you some other stuff. Didn't make any changes, so I don't know why it would ask that. So yeah, Windows 3.0 itself runs okay on a 10 megahertz XT. It is acceptable. But programs running under Windows, not so much. I'll run Microsoft Word for DOS here. Sorry, I'm giving you a skewed view of the monitor. I guess I can come over here, but now I can't prop my arm up on the desk. That's why I like camcorders. Holding a phone is hard. But there's Microsoft Word for DOS open already, version 6.0. And I'll open one of the example documents. Oh, notice it's mouse aware, so that's cool, and we are running in. Has this frozen? For some reason it's not registering my mouse clicks. That's interesting. I've never noticed that before. I don't know why it's doing that. We will... No, that is just not registering my mouse clicks. That's very strange. October, I think, is a good one. Oh no, it should have been news. News was a good one. Oh well. Yeah, well, there you go. And the cool thing is, this started in Word 5.5 and it was improved a bit in Word 6.0. You can actually get a graphical preview of the document as it will look when you print it out. So while Word for DOS can't display, you know, like pictures and stuff, it'll actually render that in the print preview. This will take a while, especially on a document with like pictures and stuff. It'll take a long time on a computer of this grade to render this preview. So we'll see how it does here. No graphics in this one, I don't think. But yeah, there you go. That's an actual look of how your document will look. So it's very cool that you get this in DOS. And of course, WordPerfect had something like this as well. I think starting in version 6.0 of WordPerfect. You get a chart there. And I think that might be the end. Maybe not. It's doing a lot of loading from the hard drive. Got a footer there. That shows up. And I believe you can zoom in, like if I click the little plus here. Oh right, it's not registering my mouse clicks. That is so weird. What if I hit the plus button on the keyboard? Yeah, that'll work. You can get a zoomed in view. And likewise, you can zoom out and I believe get up to a 2-page view. I'm concerned that my mouse clicks aren't working. That's so weird. So yeah, this is another program that you really want on a 286 or a 386, but it runs acceptably, I think, on an XT system. Alright, let's get out of here. And we're back at the prompt. Actually, we'll run Norton Utilities. I'll just show you that. Oops, I always think it's NU and it's Norton. I got shamed once on a vintage computer forum for running Norton Utilities 6 on the IBM portable PC. They thought I was stupid for doing that. They said Norton Utilities 4.5 was all you needed, running 6 was just silly. Well, I'll probably put 4.5 on the IBM now to make it a bit more period correct, but I have no qualms about running 6 on this machine. I don't care. See how defragged, or how fragmented rather, my hard drive is. I would do the benchmark test in system info, but the XT IDE card has, or I was going to say the card has a bug. No. Norton Utilities has a programming simplicity in it that makes it not work correctly with the XT IDE card. The program will freeze when you try to do the hard disk benchmark. Other programs like Checkit work though. I have the hard drive split into two 65 meg partitions. That's just to speed up counting the free disk space. So you can see I have about 30 megs here on this one 65 meg partition. So I've got quite a bit of stuff on here for an XT system. 96% is not fragmented. I will not worry about it then. Now is my mouse... Oh, mouse clicks work in Norton Utilities. That must just be Microsoft Word that's going a bit loopy for some reason. But there's that. We'll run... Actually, we will run system info. Okay, apparently it's not SI. Sys, is it sysinfo? Yes, it is. I get abbreviations mixed up with actual DOS commands. So you can see Norton System Info actually calls this thing an Epson Equity, which is kind of hilarious. BIOS date, April 9th, 1988, NEC V20. It says 15 megahertz. I think that's just a glitch in System Info. Maybe because the NEC V20 is slightly more efficient than an 8088. Maybe a 10 megahertz V20 is equivalent to a 15 megahertz 8088. I don't know. And it sees the math coprocessor, VGA graphics, serial mouse. There's the hard drive, 128 megs in total, and it says 360K floppy drive. That's also not correct. That's possibly because this computer, like the IBM PC XT that it attempts to clone, they're both while they both work with 720K floppy drives, they're okay for reading and writing data. If you try to format a disk, it'll only format the disk as a 360K disk, so it won't format correctly. However, there's a technique you can do. Well, there's two techniques you can do. I've done one of them, but apparently there's another one that V Westlife told me about that I haven't looked at yet, that apparently looks a lot better. But what I've done is, MS-DOS comes with a file called driver.sys, and all you have to do is put driver.sys in your config.sys file, and what it'll do is it'll set up a drive D, assuming you set it up and specify the letter D. It'll set up a drive D that's mapped to the A drive, the floppy drive. So if you need to format a 720K disk on a computer like this one that doesn't fully support 720K drives, you can do format D instead of format A, and it'll format correctly. Driver.sys is sort of an overlay that allows the computer to properly talk to the 720K drive for formatting. That's the way I learned about and that I did. V Westlife recently told me that there's a better way. I think it's some sort of TSR that you run or something that lets you just use format A and it'll properly format the drive. So I need to look into that and implement that on this computer in case I ever need to format a disk. So that's very good to know. ISA bus says PCAT. I'm not sure why it says that. It's not 16-bit ISA slots. One serial port, one parallel port, 83 key keyboard. That is not correct. It's an 84 key and DOS 5.0. 640K of RAM, no extended, no expanded. I'd like to see if I can do something with the VGA RAM on this card. I think that'd be kind of neat. What's video summary say? Video graphics array, analog color, blah blah blah. Video memory, 256K or more. We can do the CPU benchmark summary. And there you can see we are slightly better than twice the performance of an IBM PC XT. That's very cool, and we're almost half that of an IBM PC AT. And of course the 386 does a lot better, so that's very cool. Still says 15 megahertz, but now if I switch speeds right now, oh, that might not have worked. There we go. There, you can see it just went down to 1.0, so now we're equivalent to a PC XT. So that's very cool, and if I do the hard drive benchmark, it'll freeze, so I can't do that. So we'll get out of Norton Utilities. I'll run Checkit, because Checkit's hard drive benchmark works. This is Checkit 4.2, I think? 4.1. And it also sees the math coprocessor. If we go into this, Phoenix BIOS. And if we go into the main system benchmark, so there it sees the correct 9.55 megahertz, and it sees the math coprocessor, so it's going to include that in the benchmark. And there you can see, there's our speed equivalent. But what I'm laughing at, look at the math speed there. The IBM PC XT is just a tiny sliver, because of course it doesn't have a math coprocessor by default, so we're obviously going to be way better than that. But yeah, that's kind of cool. If we actually, let me go into that again, so we're gonna have to wait again. Oh, you know what, that's not gonna work. I'm gonna put it down to the normal speed and then run the benchmark. So you can see at the standard 4.77 megahertz, we're doing a little bit better than the PC XT still, because the NEC V20 is clock for clock a bit more efficient than the 8088. And then you can see our math speed, we're still off the charts. So that's kind of funny. Now, we can do the video benchmark. Is that a bit? Yeah, it is. So it'll test the speed of the video card, which is kind of funny. So there you can see we're doing quite a bit better than the PCXT. And then finally the hard drive. So there you can see we're doing far better than what it would expect to be an MFM drive that we're comparing to. Way faster transfer speed, way faster seek time, way faster track seek time. Yeah, pretty impressive. And you know, all the upgrades I've done to this computer, I mean, it's just preposterous. It's not plausible that an XT system like this would have had all these upgrades. NEC V20, 8087, SVGA video card, 130 meg IDE hard drive. It's preposterous that somebody back in the day, even in the earlier mid-90s, would have done all these upgrades to a lowly XT. All of those things individually are plausible. It's very plausible that somebody would have put a V20 in this back in the day, or an 8087. That's very plausible. A VGA video card, yeah, that's perfectly plausible, although not a SVGA overpowered card like the ET4000AX. And then a 130 meg hard drive, that's also just, well, I mean, I'm not sure that would have existed back in the day. Not an MFM drive in 1988. I believe there were 120 meg MFM drives in like the early 90s, so I suppose it's plausible, but for an XT class system it wouldn't have been a very common thing to do. And back in 1988, if you wanted a 130 meg drive, you would have had to go SCSI. And I don't think anybody would have shelled out the money for a computer like this for a SCSI controller and a SCSI hard drive. So it's just a preposterous computer, but you know, as I said, I want to make this into the ultimate XT computer, and I'm very happy with it. I'm glad to keep the IBM portable PC a bit more period correct, but I'm also glad that this thing is quite, you know, I've been able to soup it up a little bit. It makes it a bit more fun to use. Oh, speaking of the XT IDE card, I actually upgraded the firmware on it for the first time since I built it 2 years ago, or around there. At the time I built the card, what people were normally doing was some people used the latest version of the firmware, which at the time was version 2.0.0 beta 3, and some people stuck to the old version 1.1.5 or whatever firmware because some people found that version 2.0 had some bugs that didn't make the card not work well in some computers. But version 2.0 had the advantage of it had a high-speed mode where the hard drive could read and write a bit faster than it did in the version 1.0 firmware. I went with 2.0.0 beta 3 just because it was the latest version. I figured I'd give it a try, and it always worked perfect for me. I used the card in the IBM portable PC, as you know, for the longest time, and then I've recently moved it to this computer, and it's worked perfect in both computers. Well, imagine how hard I laughed when I checked the XT IDE forum on VCFed for the first time since I built the card, and discovered that not only has the firmware gone through many revisions since 2.0.0 beta 3, but 2.0.0 beta 3 is considered a very garbage, very buggy and unstable version of the firmware. And I just laughed because it's always worked perfect for me, but now it's considered a very unstable and buggy firmware. And they've, you know, there's been so many revisions to the firmware since then that they actually changed versioning numbers. There isn't a version number anymore, there's just a revision number. So I decided to, for the first time since I built the card, to upgrade the firmware, and I put in the latest firmware, which was revision 591, and it once again works just fine. The interface is the same, and yeah, no problem, it works just perfect. What's kind of cool is, see, the people who write the XT IDE firmware make builds make different builds of the firmware for depending on what type of computer you're running. There's a build for if you're on an XT, there's a build for a 286, a build for a 386, and that's so, you know, if you put in the build matched to your computer, the XT IDE card can take advantage of the extra CPU instructions and other features of your particular CPU and make the card run as fast as possible. Well, I've always just used the standard XT firmware build, but something I discovered was they make a build for 8186 and 8188 compatible machines, ergo the NEC V20 and V30 CPUs. And since I was going to be using the card in this particular computer with an NEC V20 processor, I decided to try the 8186/188 build of the firmware, and it indeed works just fine. It doesn't make use of the protected memory mode. So yeah, I was able to put in a slightly upgraded firmware to take advantage of the NEC V20 CPU, make the hard drive go just a little bit faster, so that's really cool. If I ever move the card, for example, back into the IBM portable PC, I'll have to reflash it with the standard XT firmware, but that's no problem. But yeah, I thought that was kind of cool, and now I'm up to date on the card for the first time in a couple of years. So we'll get out of Check It, and what else is there to do? Showed you Word. I can show you desk view. That's where we'll end off. I'll show you desk view. DV. Welcome to desk view version 2.8 from 1996. It's a very recent program for a computer like this. It was the last version of desk view, aside from like desk view X, which is something I want to make a video of someday. So we can open a window. We'll open a simple DOS 128K window. So this is a window for our normal command line. Now if I hit, I think it's Alt? Yes. And we can open another window. And there you can see we now have two DOS windows. And wow, it's getting a bit flick. Why the hell did they choose that color combination? Dark blue on dark red. Oh my god, that's awful. I don't think you can even see that on the video. Man. So yeah, there's the directory. Wonder if there's enough. It only allocates 128K of RAM. I wonder if that's enough for edit. No, edit does not like that. But I can hit Alt again and go open window, and it does have custom-made windows that you can open for particular programs like edit. Now I believe it opens at it in full screen. Yes, it says swapping, which means it's preparing the entire screen for edit. So there's edit. And yeah, if I hit Alt again, oh, well, the menu came up briefly, but oh yeah, there we go. So now we're in the window again, but as you can see, there's edit in the background, and if I click, it's swapping back to it. So it is doing some very rudimentary pseudo multitasking, task switching basically. And it does have an option for Windows 3.0, but I don't think it's gonna, yeah, insufficient memory. So desk view is really, it's sort of choking on a system like this. You know, by default it made a Windows 3.0 mode, even though this computer is absolutely not going to be able to run Windows 3.0 as a desk view client. It's just not going to be able to do that. Let's get out of that, get out of that. We will close edit, and now we're back to the windows. But if you're doing just straight command line stuff, it's actually kind of neat, because I'm trying to think of an example of something I could do. So let's see if I can do this. I'm going to use one window to copy a bunch of files to the floppy disk. So I'm going to go copy everything to A. And then while it's doing that, I'm going to see if I can swap to the other window and do something else. I'm going to see if how good the multitasking or task switching actually is. So it's copying that. So if I go switch windows, yep, it's still copying. It's still copying. Holy crap, it actually works. Multitasking. I didn't expect that. I figure it would stop once I did that. Holy cow. Can I run check it? Cannot execute. Yeah, it probably wants the whole screen. That's quite impressive. It's actually literally doing two things at once. That's very impressive. Still copying. Copying and reading a directory at the same time. Can I run... Oh, I haven't shown you manifest yet. Manifest probably isn't gonna... Oops. It's done copying anyway. But yeah, it was literally doing two things at once. That's quite impressive. Holy crap! Manifest, wow! Manifest can actually run in a desk view. Oh, wait a minute. Of course Manifest can run in a desk view window. They're both quarter deck products. So that's not a huge surprise, but yeah, there's Manifest running in a desk view window. That's quite impressive. So if I bring up the menu, can I make that full screen? Rearrange, zoom? Ah, okay. Now the color is all messed up. It's not supposed to be like this, so that's desk view's fault. Well, let me get out of that. So now the entire window has become the full screen. So let me exit. And let me exit. And let's quit desk view. So there you go. That's a kind of a cool little demo of desk view doing actually what it was intended to do. So that's kind of cool. And we're back at the prompt. So let me run manifest. So yeah, desk view really only shines on a 286 or 386, but on a computer like this, it actually has a little bit of use, which is funny. Quarter deck manifest, version 1.10. So there is that. And config.sys, the auto exec, what it sees in the first megabyte of memory. And there it's showing the layout of the video card memory. No expanded memory, no extended memory. DOS 5.0. Everything checks out okay. Nothing to suggest. Alright, thank you, Manifest. We'll get out of that. So I demonstrated a bit more software than I originally intended, but I think that's totally fine. See, what I usually do is I say, oh, in a future video we'll demonstrate software, and then I never get to it. So I figure while I'm on a roll, I might as well show you everything I've installed and how it runs and everything. But I think that's all there is to show of my Epson Apex Plus Turbo XT computer from 1988. Given to me by my math teacher in 11th grade in 2011, and I'm over the moon that this computer is finally running to its full potential, thanks to my boyfriend who sent me that video card, and of course thanks to him sending me this this hard drive caddy, which was originally meant for the IBM, but I think it works a bit better. It's a bit better suited to this computer. So yeah, I'm actually excited to see, you know, what else I can do with this computer. You will be seeing this computer in at least 2 more videos. I'm going to be using this computer to demonstrate the Wi-Fi modem adapter that my boyfriend sent me, and I'm going to be using this video in another video. I'm going to be using this computer in another video to show the Kovac speech thing clone that my boyfriend made me. So you'll be seeing more of this computer in the near future, but for now, we'll shut her down. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully it wasn't too long and drawn out, but yeah, really glad to have this thing finally running, and I hope you enjoyed seeing it, and I will see you in the next video. I'll tell you what, Mers, it gets the adrenaline rushing when you accidentally spill milk into a live surge protector.
Jeez, how did that happen?
I fucking knocked a glass of milk over and it went right inside the aux1 and aux2 switches of my surge protector.
Sparks flying everywhere and
No,
sizzling milk.
I freaking shut those two switches off immediately.